Hey guys, welcome to Build Order Win. My name is The Truth, and today we have a very special guest. He's a former teammate of mine, but he left to go to the dark side, and his name is TheGiantNome. You want to say a quick hello?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Perfect. Okay, so this video is going to be all about scouting information and Protoss versus Zerg. And so today, let me give you some further introduction. He is or the Giant Gnome is a Grandmaster League Zerg player. He's very good. He's never beaten me though, and that's
Oh, wow!
on the record. No,
Just gonna lie on record? That's awesome.
my record's not very accurate. No, but so yeah, we're gonna look at scouting information in Protoss versus Zerg, as I said, and also what that information that you gather means, and also what the best ways to go about scouting are. I guess a couple additional small little points is we'll also talk about how to know when you don't really have to scout at a certain point in the game, and then also the importance of taking control of the game in regards to scouting information. So in this first video, we're just going to look at a very standard Protoss versus Zerg, and I use standard in terms of what I expect to see probably like at least 80% of the time. Now that might differ in the lower leagues, but just to give you a good idea of a standard macro play, as I said, from a Zerg player, we're going to be looking at this video. And let me just fill you in on what build order I went for this game. This is going to be a Nexus first into Forge, and I put down my pylon at my natural and then scouted after that. So, alright, Gnome, we didn't really go over what you might be saying right now, but you want to take it away and sort of talk about what a Zerg player would do if they're sort of playing standard, as I said.
Yeah, so the two main openings that you can go for in ZVP are either the 15 hatch or the 15 pool. Personally, I like the 15 pool better. This Zerg, it looks like, was going for a 14-14, but then you scouted him, so he canceled it and went 15 hatch. But your pro block made him go for the 15 pool. So basically, you scouted a pretty standard opener, even though he had initially wanted to go for kind of a cheese.
Okay. Yeah. So, wait. What do you mean by cheese? Like going for hatch first?
No. He made a extractor on 14 supply and then canceled it.
Oh! I didn't even notice that. This is why you're here. Okay. Well, let's pretend that didn't happen for the time being. And
Yeah,
so what he ends up doing is pool into hatch. This is actually I guess this is a standard opening. Basically
pool
it's
into hatch.
pool into hatch, hatch into pool, or 3 hatch into pool.
Yeah.
And of course, what I really mean by standard is like this is what you should be seeing most of the time. And there's one key thing missing when you go scout them with that really probe scout, and it's sort of an indicator as well that they have a 3rd hatchery. And do you want to tell me what that is? No?
Is it a gas geyser?
It is a gas geyser, exactly. So if you see a gas geyser before the 3rd base, that's where you should be thinking to yourself that you might have to make adjustments to your build. And then, of course, we'll talk about that in the future videos. Now, one other thing I want to mention is that if you look at this probe outside of my natural, when you go for a Nexus first into Forge, this is something that I like to do because if the Zerg player decides to be kind of aggressive with sending 4 to 6 Zerglings, it can, there will be times where your photon cannon isn't quite up to deter them, and so that probe will give you a heads up of if you need to like wall off completely to those Zerglings.
That's generally against like a 13 pool or a 14 pool opening. Generally with 15 pool, the cannon will finish on time.
Right.
13 pool can often get in though.
And I guess I should have mentioned as well that if they go hatchery first, then you don't need to worry about that. You can actually delay your forge altogether.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, that is pretty much all I want to mention. So, I guess there's one other thing we can talk about. What is the standard gas timing if they go for the standard 3 hatchery before gas?
If they're going 3 hatch before gas, there are 2 different gas timings they can take. One is at the 36 supply count, and one is at the 44 supply count. Either one of those, you're going to double gas. The timing in-game, if you're looking at the clock, should be either 5 minutes and 30 seconds or 6 minutes flat, basically.
Okay.
Um,
And what's the difference between those? Because honestly, I just assumed it was 6 minutes is the gas timing for two gases, but
So 5:30 is a timing where you kind of want to get your layer a little bit earlier. Maybe you want to go for like a hydralisk type of play. You want to get a little bit more aggressive in the mid game, or you want to play a little bit more careful with getting your speed out early. And then the 6 minute timing is he's being very defensive. He's going for like a Nexus into Forge type of play.
okay.
And I'm just going to get as many drones as possible out.
Okay, that makes sense. Because yeah, the gas mining earlier, of course, sacrifices drones, and yeah, I guess it makes sense that you're either going to use it defensively or to tech a bit faster, just like any race, really. So okay, well that was the first part of this video. So we're going to hop into the next replay and continue on with this exciting video. So for our actual first replay, there have been some changes in the editing process. But for the actual first replay of this video, actually no, this can't be the first one. For the second one, because that wouldn't make sense,
Okay.
we are going to go over some stuff that isn't really related to the particular replay at hand. Of course, we will use this particular replay at hand after I'm done with this little speech. So, first things first in this matchup, when do you probe scout? In our first video, we saw that I probe scouted after I made the pylon on 8 supply. And you can also not probe scout at all in this matchup if you go for, let's say, a gateway expand, or if you want to be really greedy and Nexus first and don't probe scout. So, I think really it depends on what build you're doing, and also it depends on how greedy you want to be. So, to wrap up this probe scouting segment, I would say the more cheesy and all-in and early gas stuff you play versus, the more often you probably want to probe scout. I think it's really that simple. If the gnome wants to correct me on how simple this is, you can. Otherwise, I will continue.
No, man, you can keep going.
Alright, so when to scout with a hallucination. Now, you can scout with hallucination pretty darn early on because, the sentry gets the energy pretty quickly. But that doesn't mean you want to. And so I think it's good to be aware of what sort of core timings there are. And then also, each game is going to be different. So I can't just tell you exactly, like, these certain minute marks are when you should hallucinate scout, because each game is going to be different. And you're going to have to make judgment calls as well. So, the earliest you should hallucinate scout, I'm just going to... If your opponent delays their third base, this is when you would consider doing it early. What do you think, Gnome? Because for me, I usually hallucinate scout. The earliest I would do it is to see what tech they're going for after they go for a fast lair.
Yeah, so I think I think PvZ in general is like the most reactive matchup, right? At least for everyone talks about that from the Zerg perspective.
It's
but
true
I think
for
it
both.
should be true from like the Protoss perspective too.
Yes.
So if you're gonna hallucinate scout, it should be reactive to what your opponent's doing. You should do it a little bit after the third goes up, to look for drone timing on the third, and after it's finished, right? And for layer timing, because the layer should be going down around the time the third is getting half to full saturated. And then you should go again about 60 seconds to 90 seconds after you see the layer go up, because that's when they'll throw down their tech, and you can check the drones at each individual base, so you know, is this a 60 drone attack with Roach speed and Roach Ling? Is this a 60 drone attack with Hydraling? Or is he going for some sort of like 80 drone type of macro play?
Okay. After that, all good information. I think a lot of people tend to use a hallucination scout after really any timing of the layer is completed, because that's a big tech decision for a Zerg player when they're entering the mid game. But again, depending on your builds, if you, let's say you open with Phoenix, you don't need to hallucinate scout because your Phoenix can scout. But the more important thing I want to mention is that your opening Phoenix forces the Zerg player to do something, and I think this matchup is extremely difficult for both sides. And I think that to have the easiest time at it, you want to try to control the pace of the game and control the flow of the game. So opening Phoenix is one way to do that. 2-base Phoenix into Colossus. It's been a very popular build for a while. Not so much now, but it makes the Zerg player make Spore Crawlers, maybe extra Queens, go into Hydras, that sort of stuff. Let's say you go for a fast third base into Colossus. You're not forcing the Zerg player to really do anything. I mean, they're not going to go for some sort of weird Hydra all-in. But other than that, the options are open for them. So the more passive you play, the less you extend your presence onto the Zerg, the more reactionary you have to be, the more you have to scout with hallucinations. Okay, so I guess that really covers this little bit. So let's go ahead onto the replay. Gnome,
So,
I was going to say once again I'm going to test you, but in the video, this is actually going to be the first time. Because again,
Okay.
we messed up with some of the editing. But why don't you tell me what I'm playing first? You can look at all vision. If we look at my
Okay.
vision, I haven't scouted anything, so that would be a little bit difficult for you.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so
This is more about like the earliest time that someone could scout something, though, right? More so than what time you actually did scout it.
yeah, so this is just about like, let's say you probe scout. You know, you're gonna tell us what he's doing and why you knew what he was doing, and so that way, if you do happen to scout what he's doing, you can make some assumptions off of that, and
Yeah.
they'll now make sense to you. So, whenever you want to tell me what he is doing, feel free.
Okay.
So we mentioned in the last part that 530 or 33 supply, or was that the supply count?
Yeah, 36.
For
but yeah.
2 gas, yeah. So he's not doing that. We're at 6-minute mark, so there goes his 2 gas. So this looks
6
normal right now.
That is completely normal.
Completely normal. Well, that is wrong because he's not doing something normal. Haha.
Oh, wow.
So okay. So Roach Warren, I think that's a little bit early, right? Or no?
It depends. So, from what he scouted, it probably is a little bit early. Actually, he didn't see the natural,
Mm-hmm.
so he has no idea what's going on. So, because he has no information, that Roach Warren is at the exact right time.
Okay.
And you can see him throwing down that at least one panic spore crawler, kind of just to try and stay safe. He can move all his drones to that if it's DTs. If it's Oracles or Phoenix, he already has the spore crawler ready.
Mm-hmm.
And he's making lings because it could either be a third base, which he's checking for right now, or it could be like a 1 or 2 base. Well, probably not a 1 base all in, but it could be a 2 base all in.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 1 base would be a little bit late.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But okay, so now there should be something that sways your knowledge on what he might be doing.
I mean, he's still just kind of going for like Roach Ling.
Okay.
This is just like a. It's kind of like a 2 base Roach all in because he only has the 44 drones, but it's on 3 hatcheries.
That's exactly what it is. It's a Speedling Roach all in. He took a third base, but he's not really saturating his bases to the point where he needs a third base. It's more for, hey, look, I have a third base. Don't worry about this attack, and then it comes anyway. So
I think what happened this game is he had no idea what you were doing, so he made defensive units, but then he scouted the third and realized that his defensive units were going to be worthless unless he made more units to do some sort of
Interesting.
aggressive play, and that's why he's taking the 4th base now.
I was gonna ask that, yeah. Okay, so regardless, I think, would you say this is still pretty close to like a normal Roach Speedling all in if you were to do it off 3 base?
If you were to do it off of 3 base, I mean,
Is it a little bit late because of that?
well, like,
What would
if
the
you're
differences
going
be
to
if
do-
you were planning on doing this from the start?
if you're planning on doing a 3 base Roach Speedling all in, you would probably do the Stefano Roach Max type of thing, right? Where you would do 60 drones.
Yeah.
And then you would just mass Roach Ling off of 60 drones, which can still work. He does it off of 44, which is way too middle of the road. Like, either you want to do it off of 30 drones and hit at the 7:30, 8-minute mark, or you want to do it off of 60 drones, and you're hitting a little bit later, but you're kind of doing like more of a 140, 150 supply type of timing. He takes the complete middle of the road option, which is why when he gets to your base, the Void Ray and the Nexus Cannon and the Sentries just kind of tear him apart.
So I guess what you can take away from that is the more expected builds should be one of the two that Gnome just mentioned. And so if this sort of attack is going to come, it would be earlier. So, but to scout for it, I think it's, you're still looking for the same things. You're looking for the drone count. I think that's the biggest indicator.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everything else is pretty normal. So, he also only has 3 gases, which I think is also important. And that's something you can also look for when you might be playing versus a Roach Max, is how much gas are they getting. And also, what is their tech? Like, he doesn't have a lair right now. If you were to hallucinate scout, that's super important. Because where is his gas going? Unless he's saving it. Saving it for something. Anyway, okay. So that's really all I want to show for this replay. But alright. Okay, so in this replay, what we're going to be looking at is what it means when you see a Zerg player take 1 gas before they take their 3rd base. This particular replay might go on a little bit longer than the rest of the games, but the reason is because the Zerg player will have a lot of options if they decide to go for the strategy. Both very aggressive options and also both very defensive. Can I make that much of a gap?
Yeah, if you're playing against like a Sandgate or something like that, you can flood early lanes so that you kill the pylon or the probe before any warp-ins come. So it can definitely be defensive-minded against 1 base 4 gate plays, stuff like that, 2 base 4 gate plays.
Okay. Alright, so why don't you tell us what this gas timing is all about, and then I'll get into some general information.
Okay, cool. So there are a few different things you need to know with gas timings. For Zerg, speed will finish give or take, around 3 minutes after the gas starts, right? So you see my gas go down at about 2:57. That means 3 minutes from now at 5:57, my gas is going to be done. So I would assume from the Protoss perspective, that would mean you probably want to finish your wall right around 6 minutes. But you have to be kind of careful because there are like several different gas timings. If I took a later gas like this, around the 250-ish mark, that's around like 17 gas, like 15 hatch, 17 gas, and 17 pool. Or like I did this game, 15 hatch, 15 pool, and then 17 gas. If they're going for a 15 hatch, 16 gas, 16 pool, or they're going for a 15 hatch, 15 gas, 15 pool, those are 2 pretty early builds. The gases will come around 2:30, maybe a little bit earlier than that. You really have to be careful because it's either a Speedling all-in, a Baneling all-in, or your opponent is just making some mistakes, in which case there'll be a few drones behind where they probably should be.
Alright, I was honestly zoned out a little bit, so I'm going to have to watch this video once I post it to YouTube to recap on that. But anyway, so okay, so 3 minutes after you start mining gas is about when speed will finish.
Yep.
Also, 2 minutes is the actual 110 seconds is the literal timer on speed upgrade. So let's say you get to the Zerg base, and you don't know exactly when the gas went down. Well, once they have 100 gas, that's when they'll start speed, if they are going for speed, in which case 2 minutes later they will have it. A little bit of a day 9 breakdown for you, but okay, so that is the speed option for speedlings, which again, it could mean they're doing some sort of Speedling all-in or Speedling Baneling all-in. The other options they have are 2 base Roach all-in, I guess, without speed. I'm sure this is a build that pops up in some leagues. I never see it.
You can do it with speed too.
With
One of my
speed,
friends
okay.
in Grandmaster does it. He's pretty fucking cheesy, but basically what they'll do is they'll shoo away your probe, put guys back on gas, drone to about 28, which I'm drone to right now, and then do a Roach Warren, and do a Roach speed all-in, which can be pretty potent against players that might not hit the best force fields, might not have a wall prepared, or get a later mothership core. Any of those things can...
Yeah, so just playing too greedy, I think, is the general thing. And also, if you do get tricked, if you see they pull out a gas, and then you think, okay, it's just speedlings, Because if they keep mining gas, I guess is another important thing. If they mine over 100 gas, I think 9 out of 10 times it's an all-in. Is that sort of true? Or
Yeah, 9 out of 10 times it's an all-in. 1 out of 10 times you get some cheesy bastard who's going like two base mute or something stupid like that.
Which, of course, is the other option with an early gas. When you see Zerg players go for an early lair, it's off of this one gas again. So that means they're going to skip speed and use that 100 gas on a lair.
I think it's important to note that with a build that Startail Life has a build like that, right? Where he goes early lair and then it's like a two-base kind of burrowed roach play, where he's getting a third base later, probably like the 7 to 8 minute mark. And that's a completely viable strategy that you're going to kind of have to scout for.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought a little bit. So, okay, all of this information. Let's say you're playing on a 4-player map, and you can't quite get your probe into their main base. You go for a later scout. Same thing might be true. You can't see when their gas timing was. All this information also will revolve around when they take their third base.
Yeah.
So the standard timing is about 4 to 5 minutes. 4 to 5 minutes. I feel like 5 minutes is a bit late.
5 minutes is very late. 4:30 is generally the timing that you're going for if you make 4 Zerglings. I like to cut 2 of those Zerglings and get my hatchery down at 4 minutes exactly on most maps.
Okay.
That's if I'm going for the gasless play, right? With a gas play, I'm really looking for that like 5:30, 6 minute mark expansion.
And that's for a what will most likely end up being not an all-in. But they still can do a 3-base all-in off of that, of course. And they honestly can do technically a 3-base all-in, but more like a 2-base all-in because the third hatchery is just a fake. And that will happen sometimes. It's very tricky to play against. But to summarize all of that information, basically, scouting for a third base is very important. It's something I forgot to mention in the last video. Typically I like to scout, again, around 4 to 5 minutes. If you don't see a hatchery, it means they've taken at least one gas. And then you just have to keep in mind of all the things that we've talked about in this part of the video. So all in, fast lair, and you have to adjust your build accordingly unless your build accounts for that scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. And then I guess the last option is you didn't go for an all-in or a fast lair. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this build, but you want to just tell us exactly what it is.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of a Sue style. Sue is a multi-time GSL runner-up. Basically, you're going for the 17 gas geyser to get an early speed. You're pulling 2 guys out of gas and you're going for 1/1 lings. I like to follow it up with roaches with speed. Getting very aggressive kind of in that mid-game stage around where the Protoss player is taking their third base with roach ling. And then going into a muta style. That's one option off of this double ling upgrade style. There's also another option, which I think I go for this game if I recall correctly, where you're kind of going fast into that hive tech so that you can get ultras out very quickly. The reason that I go for that style occasionally these days is because the prevalence of blink openings off of 3-base is much higher than it used to be. Protoss players always used to open like either Phoenix Colossus or some sort of 2-base all-in with a Robo, things of that nature, or like a 7-gate. But now I think the Blink Stalker play is becoming much, much more common.
For sure.
And so that's kind of why I like to get those ultras out.
Fair enough. All right. So I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about how to defend versus all these different scenarios. But more importantly, I just want you to be aware, before I finish that sentence, there will be a video talking about exactly that, defending all-ins, defending versus these non-standard plays that a Zerg player could do. But yeah, I just want you to be aware. So if you see that early gas, if you see a late third, make sure you're not going to get all-ins. Make sure you're playing a little bit safer than normal, maybe. And then a very good thing to do as well is to make more of an effort to scout your opponent. When would a lair finish if they go for a quick lair? Do you know that timing?
You mean off of
2 bases, so 1 gas.
So it's kind of like a 2-base muta thing. If you go for speed first, it should go down at like 5 to 5:30, depending on how quickly you really want to get that down. Some people like to go for, a third queen or something else before that. But 5 to 5:30 is basically the timing you're looking for.
Okay. Well, I was just mentioning that because you don't want to scout too early because it won't give you any critical information. Seeing them making a lair, I guess, is pretty helpful.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I like to see what tech they're doing off of that.
Yeah, so lair takes 80 seconds.
Okay.
So a minute from 5:30 is 6:30. So about 7 minutes to 7 minutes 30 is when a lair would be finishing.
Okay. And we should see more. We should see a replay actually showing this, so we'll talk about it more then as well. So, okay, that's gonna wrap up this replay. So we'll go ahead and hop into the next one. All right. So in this replay, we're gonna test TheGiantNome a little bit. But more importantly, we're going to talk about 2 base all-ins that Zerg players can do, and what appropriate responses there are to them. So, Gnome, tell me what he's doing.
So he went 15 hatch, 16 gas, and then is he going to 15 pool? He's not even going to make another drone. This is most likely either a Speedling all-in or a Speedling Baneling all-in.
Pick one. Can you pick one, or can you not tell?
I'm gonna pick Speedling Baneling all-in, but it's pretty much just a 50-50.
All right, guess the other one. Guess the other one.
Guess it's a Speedling all-in.
You're wrong.
Okay.
Okay, no, it is a Speedling Baneling all-in.
Should I tell the people why I know it's a Speedling Baneling all-in?
You talk and then I'll talk. So go ahead.
Okay. This map has a tiny ramp, okay? So because it's a tiny ramp, you would not want to go Speedling all-in. So I assume because Jim Rising is a relatively intelligent player, he's not going to go Speedling all-in on a map that can be walled in like 2 minutes, right?
It's literally 2 buildings to do this.
Yeah.
Well,
so
with a probe there.
He's going to do the intelligent thing and go Speedling Baneling all-in, because either the Protoss didn't put the pylon in their wall, in which case they have to invest more money walling, or they did put the pylon in the wall, which is just bad for them because it's a very easily Baneling bustable building. So,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so now that our noob over here is finished talking, let the expert start. Okay, so what I want to say though, again, early gas, no third base. These are the 2 core things that you can just, if you just want to think about it very simply, those are the 2 key things to notice. And again, if you can't get into space early, if he has no third base, by 5 minutes, you know there's a gas down. Alright, so now, what do you do? If you noticed, it's a rhetorical question. If you noticed, I didn't see how much gas he mined, so I don't know that he mined over 100 gas, which is a strong indicator that he's doing it all in. So I need to play safe, but I don't want to invest too much in defense because what if he doesn't all in me, right? So once again, I'm going to get into more detail in a future video about how to exactly hold this, but you'll see that I play extremely greedy. I'm still able to hold this somehow, and I wasn't playing well either, but I guess that's beside the point. But most importantly, I'm mentally prepared that something like this could happen. My mothership core is out here to spot for something. My 3rd nexus is going down to spot for an attack from this direction. It's a very tactical procedure here. But okay. And I have a tool. I have the tools to defend potential all-ins. And that's important. So you don't need to be super defensive, but you want to have the potential to defend, if you're not sure if it's coming. So mothership core for overcharge, sentries for force field, and the Stargate I can make a void ray or an oracle, which is good versus killing stuff. So, okay, do you want to say any last words? We only are really talking about, we're only showing the Speedling Baneling all in, but like we mentioned before, this could be Speedling Roaches, it could just be Speedlings, as Noah mentioned, and you're really just doing the same sort of procedure for all of that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I would just say one small thing. The Speedling all-in, just Speedlings, will hit at about 6 minutes. The Speedling Baneling all-in, like you're seeing now, will hit at about 7 minutes. And a Roach-based all-in will probably hit you closer to 8 minutes.
That is important to know for sure. So I guess, if you are really keeping on top of your timings, once you get past 6 minutes, no speedlings, well, it's either a slow speedling all-in, or it's not a speedling all-in at all. You know what I forgot to do? Was lower the volume on this game, so the volume was just blasting.
Nice, dude.
But it was only for that part. So you probably didn't hear much what we said. Don't worry, we're really just dragging this out. But okay. So, unfortunately, I do have a bunch of replays for this video, but I don't have a replay for Nidusworm, 2-base Muta, and I feel like that's all that you really do on Lair Tech, right? In terms of a 2-base all-in or a 2-base
I
cheesy
mean,
play?
I have a really silly 2-base Hydra.
I was just gonna say
but it's
Hydras
not
as well.
Good. Like,
Yeah, typically
it's
not
not a
that great.
good build.
Okay, well, since we're not going to see a Nidusworm replay or a 2-base Muta replay, I just want to give you a little checklist. This is what I used to do when Swarm hosts were still in the game. And I say that sort of jokingly. But, so, Nidusworm is really rare for my games, but having pylons for vision around your base is really good. If you get to the point in the game, again, 8 minutes is when roaches would hit. If you get to 8 minutes, no roaches, well, maybe start worrying about Nidusworm, right? So make sure you have vision around your base. And again, if they go for 2-base Muta, you can make a scout. So the lair would probably finish around 7 minutes, maybe?
7:30.
Okay. And then the
Probably.
Spire, any tech will take at least 60 seconds. Spire takes longer than that. So
You just take 2 minutes.
yeah, so scout them at like 9 minutes with a scout, and you'll see Spire. But more importantly, I guess you want to have something ready. So you could just open 2-base Phoenix in that situation, or just keep in mind that mutas could come. But okay, that was a little bit vaguely said, but that's all right. I don't think there's a whole lot left I want to say. There would be a lot more to talk about if Swarm host Nidusworm was still a thing, because that was a pain to deal with for sure. I was actually really good at it, but it was not easy.
No, I heard it was like one of the greatest builds that has ever been invented.
Yeah, by great you mean combining something cheesy with something OP. Alright. But okay, we're gonna get into the next game, so. Alright, so in this game, I just want to quickly show what it looks like to play versus someone that goes for lots of speedlings. I guess between 7 and 8 minutes. Is there like a name for this particular kind of build, or?
I have no idea what the name for this build would be.
Like, I mean, if
This
it's like
is-
a 2-base speedling all-in, that's what I call it. But like this, I
Yeah.
don't have like a concise
No,
name.
this is basically just speedling pressure to deny any fast third. And the reason he's doing it is most likely because he did not see a Stargate, and he didn't see anything that would trigger you to do like some sort of a fast all-in with like 7 gateways or anything like that.
Yeah, because I think really anything where you're taking a later third base, this isn't going to be good verse, right? Or am I wrong
No,
about
this
that?
is really bad against anything where you're taking a post 8-minute third base.
Or an all-in, right?
Yeah, or an all-in. Basically, this is a build that you're only doing to cancel any type of third base between the 7 and the 8.5 minute mark, or like if they're not going Oracle, right? Because if they're going Oracle plus third base, all of your lings are just going to die.
Okay. So, now I just want to go to my vision, and you'll notice I hallucinate Scout for his third base. Earlier on, I didn't see a third base, so again, that means he had a gas, and I did also see this gas geyser, so I knew that anyway. So this hallucination was for seeing, is he taking a third base, or is he all-inning me? Or a fast lair.
And the important
Into
thing
an
is that
all-in, I guess.
you saw like no drones at the third base, right? So you can see the 20 speedlings that are in production now. He probably would have already been making drones if he was going to do some sort of a drone-based play. Because right now he's pretty behind on where he should be. You guys are even on probes and drones, and the timing where a Zerg player generally gets ahead on probes and drones is 36 supply.
Okay. Man, you know more than me. You should be doing this. Okay, so what I was gonna say is that we saw the gas, and so we know this is a potential. The fact that we saw the gas, later third base, of course. So this is one of his options, is make lots of speedlings in this timing window. And because you know this, again, it's about 8 minutes. I haven't actually seen these speedlings until really soon after this pause. But if I was planning on doing a fast third base, maybe instead I play a bit safer. Honestly, you should be anyway, because of everything that we've talked about so far. But you should definitely keep in mind that if you want to take a faster third base, it can very easily be denied by this strategy. So that's really all I want to mention, and just show you exactly what this looks like. Because I think really the fastest third bases you can go for versus Zerg are like 6:30. I don't know if you can take one by 6 minutes. And so
Maybe if you're on one gate.
yeah, and so this is designed to kill any third base that's there, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm
It
questioning.
makes way too many lings.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to make 50 speed.
Yeah, this is something. Yeah, I was laughing while playing this game out because he had a million lings and I had no intention on taking a third base. I would say this guy's pretty risky. And I would say I'm pretty gateway druggy. Okay, we're gonna go to the next game. Alright, so for this quick replay, we're gonna be looking at a potential Zerg build. Really, it's just a general playstyle more than anything that can hard counter certain Protoss builds and playstyles. And I'm being very vague because I'm gonna let TheGiantNome make a fool of himself. Hopefully, I mean, he's probably gonna get it right, but I'm hoping for the best here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna watch this game, and we're just gonna pay attention to the Zerg player, and I'm gonna let Gnome tell me as soon as he can figure it out what the Zerg player is going for here.
I mean, right now I just know that he's going for a melee thing.
Okay, good guess since it's already started.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But so
I'm guessing he'll throw out a lair in a second.
So to keep you up to speed, though, my pro scout saw one early gas and a late third, so or no third to be literal about it. So there goes the lair. Now, again, a 2-base all-in doesn't really make sense here. He's getting the extra gas, which could mean he's doing a weird 2-base all-in, but he's taking a third
Is this
base.
Muta?
It is Muta. All right. So how did you know that?
Okay, so generally when you're going Muta in this matchup, the unit that you're making to complement the Muta is the Zergling. You're going for like a mass counterattack style against a Protoss opponent who usually won't go Stargate. I mean, he doesn't know you in Stargate this game, I don't think.
I don't make any Phoenix anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good for him. But generally, if they're opening Blink Stalkers, you're trying to like run Lings into the third base. You're trying to throw Mutas into the main base. So I knew from a few things. One, he was getting the melee upgrade, which wouldn't make too much sense if he was going for like a roach attack or something like that. Two, he went for the relatively fast layer, and then followed it up with 2 more gases off of basically a 2-base drone count. He doesn't have any drones at the third yet, even though he is making them. And the kind of smaller tell is that this is just one gigantic ass map. So,
yeah, for sure. So regarding the upgrade, of course, as a Protoss player, you can see the one Evo, but you can't see what they're getting. I think it's definitely possible that they're getting a range attack upgrade or carapace. So I think you can't really know that they're going Muta quite yet off of that information. But just a good general sort of tip is in this matchup, I like to click on my opponent's units every now and then to see what upgrades they're getting. So even if they open Roach Hydra, if they're not getting ranged attack upgrades, I'm a bit more worried about a Muta transition. So
yeah.
okay.
One tell that you could use if you were to like hallucinate Phoenix Scout right now or something like that, and you saw no Roach Warren, and you saw all of this fast gas off of 2 bases.
For sure. I mean, that should pretty much
That should
certain.
be a pretty big tell. Again, it could be like a 2-base Hydra attack.
Yeah, on this map that'd be
that's-
awful.
That would be extremely bad.
But it does depend on the map. So, okay. Let's go ahead and... Okay, so as I sort of alluded to earlier, let's say you open with Colossus, you got to be really careful about mutas. It's a pain to deal with. Um, Actually, I guess that's sort of my thought. But this is just one more thing you should be aware of in this matchup. Typically, when players go for mutas as their first tech choice, it's off of 3 bases. Like they'll just do the normal setup, I think. But this game, he went for a faster layer. So again, this is one of the options a Zerg player has. So it's just good to be aware of that. And I think that's really all I want to show for this replay. We're going to look at one more replay, I think. Okay. Well, alright guys, the quote-unquote ghetto ending has come. Again, the editing, blah blah blah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. A huge thanks to GiantNome. He came on. I asked him on a whim. He was way out of my league. I mean, not literally, we're actually in the same league, but you know, in terms of like a girl. Anyway,
Wow.
But he helped me a ton with this video. This would have been like not even half as good. So, but more importantly, if you guys want to see more stuff like this, more players joining me to save the channel, let me know in the comments. But Gnome, huge thanks.
Yeah, man, for sure.
And alright guys, well I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.